Okay, let's kick things off. We've got some really massive news coming out of India's defense sector to impact today.
That's right, the big headline. India has officially given the green light to a major, really high-stakes defense program.
And that program is the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, or AMCA, specifically the Program Execution Model.
Yep. And
It's for India's defense capabilities, yeah, and also its industrial ambitions. Because this feels big.
oh, it's definitely big. The immediate significance. This isn't just another project getting stamped. This is like the crucial operational step towards India building its own fifth-generation stealth fighter.
Which puts India in a pretty exclusive club, globally speaking.
A very exclusive club. We're talking about the handful of nations that can actually design and produce aircraft with this level of advanced tech.
So let's nail down the specifics. What actually happened on May 27th?
Okay, so on May 27th, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh gave the formal sign-off, the approval, for the AMCA's program execution model.
Right. Now, we had heard about the AMCA before this, hadn't we? There was some earlier approval.
You're right. Back in March 2024, the project got its initial nod from the Cabinet Committee on Security, the CCS.
But that was different.
Yeah, that was more like the high-level concept approval. Yes, we want to do this. This latest approval, the May one, that's the operational trigger.
So it shifts from good idea to, okay, here's the funding structure. Let's actually start building this thing.
Exactly that. It's the move from planning stages into active, detailed development. And the agency leading the charge is the Aeronautical Development Agency, ADA, under DRDO.
ADA. Okay. They're officially the primary executing authority now.
That's the designation, yes.
Got it. So that covers the what and the when. Let's talk about the so what. Why is everyone calling this such a strategic leap?
Well, the core goal, like you said, is India's first indigenous fifth-gen stealth fighter. And that ties directly into the Atmanirbhata vision, self-reliance.
And arguably one of the most complex tech areas there is.
Absolutely. And developing this kind of aircraft, it fundamentally changes the game in terms of air power projection.
How so? What does stealth really buy you?
Stealth means drastically reduced detectability. It lets you penetrate deep into contested airspace where older planes just couldn't go or couldn't survive. Combine that with advanced sensors, networking. It's a massive qualitative edge.
So the ambition is clear. Join that top tier of aerospace nations.
Precisely. Designing and producing next-gen combat aircraft from the ground up. That's the goal.
And I imagine that kind of ambition doesn't come cheap. What's the cost looking like?
No, definitely not cheap. The sources mention an initial development cost estimate of around 15,000 crore rupees.
15,000 crore.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that puts it right up there as one of India's most ambitious and certainly most expensive single defense projects ever.
Which really underscores the strategic importance they're placing on this, right? Self-reliance in critical tech.
Exactly. Reducing that dependency on foreign suppliers for these really high-end platforms, that's a huge strategic driver.
Now, it feels like this isn't happening in a vacuum. Is the AMCA program building on past Indian experience?
Oh, absolutely. It's explicitly leveraging the experience, the decades of work that went into the light combat aircraft, the LCA Tejas.
So Tejas was kind of the stepping stone, proving the concept, building the skills.
You could say that. Tejas was really India's modern fighter university, if you like. It proved they could handle complex aerospace design, integration, testing, manufacturing.
And built the talent pool, too, I guess.
Crucially, yes, the technical expertise, the industrial base, all that groundwork laid by Tejas is fundamental to even attempting something like AMCA. The lessons learned there are invaluable.
Okay, let's talk about the aircraft itself. What do we know from the sources about the AMCA specs?
Well, it's described as a twin-engine, medium-weight fighter, and critically, a stealth fighter.
And its role for the Indian Air Force? What's it designed to do?
It's designed for versatility, think deep penetration strike missions, but also capable in air-to-air combat and air-to-surface attacks. A true multi-role platform.
And there's something mentioned about a design change, increasing the weight.
Yes, that's interesting. Recently, the design was modified, increasing the overall weight to 27 tons.
Why the change?
The key reason given is to accommodate a larger payload of conventional weapons inside its internal weapons bay.
Internal carriage is key for stealth, right?
Absolutely essential. But internal bays limit your volume and weight. So, bumping up the aircraft weight suggests the IAF put a high priority on carrying a significant internal weapons load. More ordnance, more punch, while staying stealthy.
Makes sense. What about under the hood? The engines.
Okay, so initially, the prototypes and probably the first production batches will use General Electric F414 engines. These are well-regarded, powerful engines.
But the goal is self-reliance, so are they looking at making them in India?
Yes, the sources mention ongoing talks, negotiations for local manufacturing arrangements for the F414s. That's a key piece of the puzzle for true Edmund Barda in this project.
Now, fifth-gen development is notoriously tricky. Timelines often slip. What's the latest word on when we might actually see an AMCA prototype take to the skies?
You're spot on. These timelines are complex. And yes, the AMCA timeline has seen some revisions. Earlier hopes were a bit sooner, but the current projection is for the prototype's first flight around 2028.
Okay, 2028. And the source mentioned reasons for the adjustments.
Yeah, mainly two things. First, the complexities in finalizing the production partnerships, which is a whole fascinating story we should get into.
Definitely. And the second reason.
Just the inherent technical hurdles, integrating all the advanced stuff, stealth coatings, materials, internal bays, complex sensors, avionics into a working, reliable fifth-gen platform. It's just really, really hard. Common challenge globally.
Right. So let's talk about that production partnership model. You said it was fascinating, described as revolutionary. How so?
Okay, yeah, this is quite different. It's a dual public-private production approach.
Which is a shift from what they might have considered before.
Seems so. There was talk previously about maybe a special purpose vehicle, an SPV model, but the sources suggest that face some challenges, maybe getting private buy-in or just structuring it right.
So what does this dual model look like?
Well, instead of one entity, the Ministry of Defense plans to fund both Hindustan Aeronautics Limited HAL, the big state-owned player, and a private sector partner who'll be chosen competitively.
They're funding both HAL and a private company. To do what, exactly?
To each develop their own AMCA prototypes, independently.
Wow. Like a bake-off.
Kind of. Think of it as a competitive development phase. The idea is whichever prototype HALs or the private partners demonstrates superior design or capability, that design becomes the baseline for the main production run.
That is a bold strategy.
Yeah.
Very different. What happens after that evaluation? How is the actual manufacturing split supposed to work?
The sources suggest the production contracts, once awarded, would likely be split roughly 60-40 between the two entities, HAL and the private partner.
And the thinking behind this potentially quite complex approach, why go down this route?
Several reasons seem likely. One, fostering innovation through competition, right? Pitting public and private capabilities against each other.
Okay, makes sense. What else?
Building supply chain resilience, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And related to that, mitigating the risks of relying on a single source for such a critical, complex program.
And private companies can team up.
Yeah, the model allows for participation independently or through joint ventures or even as consortia, as long as they meet the criteria and comply with Indian laws.
We mentioned ADA, the Aeronautical Development Agency, is leading this. Can you give us a bit more background on them? Why are they the ones for the job?
Sure. ADA was set up back in 1984, based in Bangalore.
And their track record.
Their foundational experience, the big one, is successfully leading the LCA Tejas program. They manage that whole complex development cycle.
So they have the chops for a fighter jet program. What specific capabilities do they bring to something as advanced as AMCA?
They've got the heavy-duty tools.
Yeah.
Advanced computing centers for all the simulation and design work, specialized software teams for things like CAD-CAM, absolutely vital for stealth shaping and comprehensive test facilities.
Like wind tunnel.
Yep, wind tunnels, structural testing labs, even specialized setups for things like lightning strike tests, the works.
Do they work with international partners too? Leverage outside expertise.
They do, and that's important. They have existing partnerships with big names like Boeing, Airbus, Dassault Systems. That gives them access to additional tech, advanced tools, simulation capability, things that are really helpful when you're pushing the boundaries like this.
Okay, so it's not just about building an airplane. The sources suggest a bigger picture, right? Building an entire ecosystem.
Exactly. That's a huge part of the strategic vision here. It's about creating a comprehensive aerospace industrial ecosystem within India.
And the benefits of that are?
Potentially massive spillover effects. Economically, technologically, this project is designed to push Indian industry to develop expertise in really cutting-edge areas.
Like what specifically?
We're talking advanced materials, the specifics of stealth technology, complex avionics and sensor fusion, even propulsion technologies down the line.
And how could that change India's position on the world stage?
Well, If successful, the scale and the tech involved in AMCA could seriously boost India's manufacturing capabilities. It could make India a much more competitive player in the global defense export market. Maybe not just for the full aircraft, but for advanced subsystems too.
Could it even have benefits beyond the military sphere?
That's definitely part of the long-term vision. These kinds of advanced aerospace technologies often have dual-use applications. The skills, the materials, the processes developed could feed into civilian aerospace. Maybe even help India compete in parts of the commercial aircraft market eventually.
Right. Okay, final piece. The
Uh-huh.
customer, the Indian Air Force. What's their commitment level here? How many AMCAs are they actually planning to buy?
The IAF has stated a clear intention to procure around 120 AMCA aircraft.
120. Okay. And will they all be the same model?
No, the plan is phased. They're looking at procuring 40 of the initial AMCA Mark I variant,
And the rest?
followed by 80 of the more advanced AMCA Mark II variant.
MK1 and MK2. What's the logic behind that split, that phased approach?
It's pretty standard for complex programs like this. It allows for incremental development and technology maturation. The MK1 gets the basic platform flying, validates the core concepts.
And then they build on that for the MK2.
Exactly. Lessons learned from developing and operating the MK1 can be fed directly into the MK2 design. The MK2 is expected to incorporate further tech refinements, maybe more mature systems that become available later. It de-risks the whole process somewhat.
So pulling it all together, this formal approval of the execution model, it really feels like a defining moment for India's aerospace ambitions.
It really does. It's laying down the concrete path towards that indigenous 5th-gen capability. It's a massive step in that Atmanaparta vision for defense.
And it feels like both a culmination of past efforts, especially Tejas, but also the groundwork for, well, a whole lot more in high-tech manufacturing.
Absolutely. It speaks volumes about the national ambition and the belief in India's growing capacity to handle these incredibly complex projects.
So maybe here's something for you, the listener, to think about as you digest all this. Given the sheer scale, the technical mountain to climb with AMCA, and especially that really interesting dual public-private development model, building competing prototypes, how might pulling this off successfully not just change India's global defense standing, but actually serve as a powerful signal? A validation, maybe, that India can tackle other super complex high-tech manufacturing challenges, potentially reshaping industries way beyond aerospace, something to mull over.